Okay, let's just talk about the speed of AI right now. It's insane, right? First, OpenAI drops GPT 5.3 instant. Then, just a few hours later, a tease for 5.4 hits X. And by March 5th, boom, it's live for everyone. If you're feeling like you've got whiplash trying to keep up, trust me, you are not alone.
And honestly, that breakneck pace, that's the real problem here. Because while we're all still trying to process the last update, OpenAI has gone and buried some of the biggest, most game-changing upgrades we've seen in years inside this new release. And guess what? Most people are just completely glossing over them.
So, what's the real story with GPT 5.4? Well, that's what we're here for. We're going to cut right through all the noise and break down the massive, and I mean massive, gap between 5.4 and the 5.2 model that, let's be real, most of us are still using every day. We'll cover everything from the raw numbers to the features that are going to completely change how you work.
All right, so to really get why 5.4 is such a huge deal, we first need to look back a little bit. We have to understand the problems it was actually built to solve. Because this wasn't just about making the numbers on a benchmark go up. No, this was about fixing a genuinely fractured and, frankly, frustrating experience for users.
So let's rewind to late 2025. GPT 5.2 comes out and it's historic, right? No doubt about it. But it was pretty flawed. Then, in February, 5.3 Codex drops. And it was an absolute powerhouse for coding, but it created this weird fragmented system. All of a sudden, you had to constantly switch between different models depending on what you needed. One for reasoning, another for coding, a third for speed. It was just messy.
And this setup created some real headaches. You know the feeling. GPT 5.2 felt so overregulated. It would lecture you, refuse to try creative prompts, and then it would hallucinate on complex stuff. So the main goal for 5.4 was to fix all that, to create one single unified frontier model. Basically a model that takes all the coding power from 5.3 and all the deep thinking from 5.2, but, and this is key, leaves all that frustrating baggage behind.
Okay, enough history. Let's get to the good stuff, the hard data. Because once you see the numbers, the performance gap between these two models is just undeniable. And I want to be clear, this is not some small incremental update, not at all.
So, first up, let's look at the GDP Val benchmark. This test is cool because it measures how the model performs across 44 different real-world jobs, everything from marketing to engineering. GPT 5.2 got a pretty impressive 70.9%, but 5.4, it jumps all the way to 83%. Now, what does a nearly 13-point jump like that actually mean in the real world? It means the model is now performing at the level of a mid to senior professional in almost half the jobs they tested. That's a massive leap.
But here's where it gets really interesting. That gap gets even wider when you look at high-stakes, specialized stuff, like take investment banking spreadsheet modeling, a field where one tiny error can cost a fortune. The score didn't just go up, it skyrocketed from 68.4% to a mind-blowing 87.5%. Think about that. For anyone in that field, that's the difference between having to babysit every single cell in a spreadsheet versus actually being able to trust the output. Game changer.
And what about just straight-up reliability? Are we still dealing with hallucinations? Well, they've plummeted. Get this, an individual fact is now a third less likely to be wrong. And even better, a whole response is 18% less likely to have any errors in it whatsoever. For anyone using these things for serious, mission-critical work, that is a huge leap in trust. But for me, maybe the most telling number of all is in abstract reasoning, on this test called ARC-AGI-2, which is all about solving problems it's never seen before. The score went from about 54% to over 83%. This is the proof we've been waiting for. It's not just a super-powered pattern-matching machine anymore, it can actually reason.
So the big question is how, right? How did they pull this off? Well, it all comes down to some really fundamental changes to the model's architecture. And these aren't just technical details. They have huge implications for anyone who's actually building stuff with this AI.
Okay, so the first big change is all about being smarter and more efficient. It's this thing called tool search. In the old days, if you wanted the AI to use a tool, you had to cram all the instructions into the prompt, which ate up thousands of tokens. It was super clunky. Now, it's totally different. The model just gets a little lightweight header, and it decides for itself if and when it needs to go get the full instructions. The result? On one benchmark, this single change cut the number of tokens used by 47%. We're talking about a massive cost saving right there.
So it's pretty cool, right? Part 1 of the new architecture is using fewer tokens whenever it can. But Part 2, it's the complete opposite. It's about giving you the power to use a massive number of tokens when you actually need to. We're talking about a new context window of 2 million tokens. That is 5 to 8 times bigger than what we had before. This just unlocks completely new ways of working. You can now feed it an entire software code base or thousands of pages of case files in one go. No more messing around with complicated pipelines.
Okay, but a quick heads up on the pricing for that giant context window, because this is important. If your prompt goes over 272,000 input tokens, the whole session gets priced at double the normal rate. So, yeah, definitely something to keep in mind when you're planning those really big jobs.
And last but not least, on the architecture side, the model's vision got a total overhaul. Remember how older models would compress images? It would just ruin the quality, and you'd miss critical details if you were looking at, say, a medical scan or a detailed schematic. Well, GPT 5.4 has this new original image detail mode. You can just send it the uncompressed file, PNG, JPEG, whatever, and it allows for truly pixel-perfect analysis. The difference is night and day. Okay, look, all those updates are seriously impressive, but this next one, this is different. This is the feature that I think changes the entire game. I'm not exaggerating when I say it pretty much stopped me in my tracks when I first understood what it could do.
This quote really nails it. We've moved from an AI that just talks to an AI that acts. It doesn't just talk about doing things on a computer anymore. It can actually do them. It literally sees your screen, analyzing screenshots in real time, and it can take control of your mouse and keyboard to use applications just like a person would.
And if you need proof, here it is, and it's jaw-dropping. There's this benchmark called OS World that tests how well you can navigate desktop software. The baseline for an average human is 72.4%. GPT 5.4 scores 75%. Just let that sink in for a second. The AI is now officially better than the average person at using a computer.
So what does that mean? Well, this new power enables a whole new class of AI that people are calling long-horizon agents. And what that means is you don't just give it a single task anymore. You can give it a broad, multi-step goal, and it can just go to work on its own across a bunch of different apps for hours at a time without you needing to check in constantly.
So what does that actually look like? Well, you could say something like, hey, plan a dinner for tonight, order all the ingredients, and then update my budget spreadsheet. And it would actually do it. It would go research recipes online, then log into your grocery delivery app to place the order, and then it would open up your spreadsheet and log the expense. And for developers, it gets even crazier. It can visually test the web apps it builds by literally clicking through the interface to make sure the buttons work before it even gives you the code.
Okay, so let's bring this all back down to earth for a minute. Back to the day-to-day user. Because all this raw power is one thing, but let's be honest, a lot of us stopped using the older models just because of how they felt to use. So let's talk about that new user experience, and then we'll get into who actually gets to use all this cool stuff.
And the shift in tone is profound. I mean, where 5.2 could feel like this preachy, neurotic compliance officer, 5.4 is more like a genuinely helpful senior colleague. For example, it now gives you an upfront thinking plan, where it literally shows you its logic before it does anything. This is huge because it means you can jump in and redirect it. And for those longer jobs, there's a new update button, so you can feed it new info in real time to change its course. The whole thing just feels so much more like a collaboration.
So how do you get your hands on it? All right, here's the quick breakdown. If you're on the free plan, you'll get the faster, lighter model, which is GPT 5.3 Instant. If you're on the Go tier, you get a little taste of the new model. We're talking 10 messages of 5.4 thinking every 5 hours. Plus, and team users get a big jump to 3,000 messages a week. And finally, if you're on the Pro tier, that's the $200 a month plan, you get unlimited access to 5.4 thinking.
And all of this brings us to the real takeaway. GPT 5.4 is not just a slightly better chatbot. It's a fundamental shift. We've moved from an AI that just talks to an AI that acts. It's a whole new category of tool. And that leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. When the AI can use your computer not just as well as you can, but maybe even better, how much are you